Hey Blades fans, I'm Alli Vellucci alongside Jake Maurice, and welcome to our pregame show in Hertz Arena for the second game against the Kalamazoo Wings. Florida coming into this one after a shutout win on Wednesday, but it wasn't the usual game that we're used to seeing from the Blades. 0-0 going to the third, the first time that's happened this season. What was the difference on both sides of the ice?
Well, it was just two defensive teams going up against each other and showing why they're so good in their own zone. For two periods, even going into the third, I was talking with some people. We were wondering if there was going to be a goal in regulation through overtime. We were going to go to like a 0-0 shootout or something like that, spend all night waiting for someone to break through the two goalies because both of them were playing well. But it was more so the defensive hockey. Neither team was really giving up any good chances. Both teams were really solid on their special teams through the first two periods. And as the game went along, you could feel that the first goal was just going to be the one that really determined who was going to win that game, because the way those two teams played defensively on Wednesday, there was no way that we were going to see a comeback in that game. So it's a good thing that Florida scored the first goal in that one, and they used that to guide themselves to the 3-0 win.
Let's talk Florida's defense. They seem to pick up Kalamazoo's style of play pretty quickly, having not seen them since 2020. Kept them to under 10 shots per period. The blue line has been looking really impressive lately, but who stood out to you on Wednesday night?
Well, on Wednesday night, it was definitely a solid group effort. Everyone showed up in a good way, but you got to go to the captain, Ben Masella. I mean, every game, him alongside Stephen LeBlanc over to his left side, those two on the top pairing really locked things down. They set the standard for what is expected for the rest of the blue line throughout the night, every night. And sure, they're not the most offensive defense in the world, although Masella has been chipping in more on the score sheet lately, getting himself more consistently contributing assists, which is good to see. But when those two are in their own zone, they're very tough to break through. And everyone else on the team sees it. Everyone else, especially the guys on the blue line on the bench, they see those guys, the work they're putting in, the shots they're blocking, the lanes they're clogging up, the hard work they put in on the boards, and they know that they have to match that level to help their team pick up the win, because Kalamazoo, they weren't great offensively on Wednesday, but they do still have talented guys. And in hockey, you don't need that many opportunities to get yourself a goal. It can only take one slip up and the puck's in the back of your net. So when you see Masella and LeBlanc working as hard as they do, it makes it so that everyone else has to follow in their footsteps, and they have to say, okay, these guys are putting in the work, we have to as well, to ensure that we can get the win tonight, because that's what it's going to take.
We talk about him all the time on the pregame show, but we can't not talk about him today. Dominic Franco, 9-game point streak. It's the longest in the ECHL right now. 4 goals, 6 assists. Head coach Brad Ralph called him a skilled forward with a lot of size. Where does his dominance come from in his certain style of play?
Well, it comes from his ability to mix his size and his skill together, because there's a lot of players where they're big, but they don't have the handwork to allow themselves to create good plays in the offensive zone, or they're skilled, but they get pushed around on the wall and lose the puck constantly. Dominic Franco, he is a coach's dream, so it's not a surprise to hear Brad Ralph talking about Franco that way. And it's that mix of size and skill, especially along the boards, able to get himself some space. He's got really good vision. He's able to find the open guy consistently, make the right play, and then move himself to areas where he can help his team out and get them points. Because he's had 10 points in this 9-game point streak, which is very impressive, but he's also been contributing on plays where he doesn't get a point, but he's providing a screen out front. He's creating chaos at the top of the paint in the crease, or he's the guy who gets the puck deep in the attacking zone and gets the offensive momentum started, which eventually leads to a goal. So honestly, if you added like tertiary assists, he'd probably have way more points here on this point streak, and he's always a guy. Every night you can expect Dominic Franco to bring it, and even on the games where the team hasn't been rolling, like last week against the Jacksonville Icemen, Franco is a guy who's constantly moving well for his team and getting his team going the right way.
Florida scores on the power play for the first time in 5 games. Jake Smith gets that goal. He's already making an impact here. What has stood out to you about him so far?
Just how lethal his shot is, and that's why they brought him in for this power play. They needed an option that other teams have to respect, and it certainly helps, I think, that he's playing Kalamazoo here in his second and third games with the team, because this is a team he's very familiar with from playing against last year when he was with the Iowa Heartlanders, so he kind of knows what they're going to do on their penalty kill. He knows where to put himself to have the most success on that power play, and he scores the power play goal, the eventual game winner in the win on Wednesday. That shot that got into the net, the way they set it up, is exactly why they have Smith here, to get goals just like that. And we can expect a lot more of that to come. And Smith being there as an option that other teams have to respect because of the lethality of his shot, it opens up other guys. It opens up Callisti on the opposite side. It opens up your blue line, and teams now have to worry about Masella. They can't just go and challenge him because they're not worried about him shooting. They're just expecting him to pass it off and they get a pass back. They have to be watching for that pass to Smith. It opens up the guys in the middle a little bit more because Smith, he can fake the shot and move it into the slot area, or it opens up the guys at the goal line. So just having one option that other teams have to constantly be looking out for makes it so that the other 4 guys have an easier time doing their jobs.
Let's talk goalies. Cam Johnson gets his second shutout of the season. He's been a solid presence for Florida in net all season long. Coach Ralph said that Evan Fitzpatrick was supposed to get the start in net on Wednesday, but he went down in practice with an injury earlier this week. So then they bring in goalie Brody Clace. He's bounced around a few teams this season, but how important is it to balance Cam's rest, but also get Clace and Fitzpatrick some reps here?
Well, yeah, you don't want Cam Johnson to reach game 72, get ready for playoff times, and he has nothing left in the tank because you're going to need him when the games are at their most important. But right now, Cam Johnson, anytime you get the shutout with Cam Johnson, a 20-save shutout where he looked pretty good. Wasn't his most challenging shutout ever, but still, he got the shutout for the 3-0 win. You're pretty much always going to go back to him, especially with 2 days of rest in between the 2 games. Next week, though, is where things are going to be a little bit more interesting because you've got 3 games in 3 days across 2 cities, Greenville, and then 2 games in Savannah. So there's no way Johnson can run all 3 of those. By that 3rd game, he'd be running on fumes, especially as he would go against, it would be basically, I believe, his 6th straight start. That's just too much, no matter how good of a goalie you are, especially 3 games in 3 days. So yeah, you need to make sure that if Fitzpatrick isn't healthy and ready to go, that you've got plays through practice set up as well as possible so that he can give you a quality start. Probably, I would imagine, on that Thursday game. You give Cam Johnson that night off. But also, it's a huge opportunity for a guy like Clay. As you mentioned, he's bounced around a little bit. He hasn't been able to find himself a regular ECHL home. So I don't think he would kick out Fitzpatrick from the crease and move himself in, but maybe he could be the 3rd goalie for the team and stick around, or he could put together a good game, or maybe a good couple games, depending on how long Johnson is out and how long the team needs him. And then he can use that to audition for other ECHL teams and show that I'm a goalie who belongs at this level. So it's a good opportunity. It's a good problem to have when you're just trying to balance the rest of your top goalie while wanting him in every night because he's playing so well. But you do need to balance that rest. And whether it's Fitzpatrick or Clays, you need to find as much time as possible for Johnson to get that rest while also using him as much as possible to get yourself some wins. Because especially at home this season, Johnson has been elite.
Florida snapped Kalamazoo's 3-game road win streak. Then Kalamazoo goes in to play Orlando on Thursday night. They get the overtime win 4-3. What are we going to see coming into this one?
Well, we're going to see a little bit more of a confident Kalamazoo team. They got their offense rolling right away pretty well against Orlando in that 4-3 overtime victory. They were right there with the Solar Bears the entire game offensively, unlike in the game on Wednesday here at Hertz Arena where Florida was eventually able to pull away. They're not coming in on like a 3-game losing streak, which if they had lost the game in Orlando, they would be. So it's not going to be necessarily a desperate team, but it's going to be a team that has more confidence, I think, than we saw on Wednesday. And it's also going to be a team that knows more about what we know. Yes, we know about what we're going to get from the Kalamazoo Wings, but the Wings know what they're going to get from the Everblades, and they're going to be more prepared to deal with that. They've got themselves feeling good after the wins, so I think we're going to see a Kalamazoo team that's pushing more for offense. In this game, though, I don't think we're going to have to wait until the 3rd period to see our first goal in this game. At least I would hope not, as that was a little bit stressful, watching, just waiting for that first one. But I think both of these teams, they understand the importance of the first goal in this game because they saw how tough it is to break through their opponent's defenses inside of the attacking zone. They saw how tough it is to get pucks into the middle and to properly move yourself around. And they saw that the other team is going to be pretty stingy with their penalties. There wasn't a whole lot of power play time for either team in that game, especially especially Florida. I mean, they really didn't have that many opportunities, so it's great that they were able to capitalize on their one, but you can't bank on getting power plays from Kalamazoo and vice versa. The Wings can't count on it from the Everblades. So these two teams, they're going to be really pushing, I think, in the early stages to get that opening goal and then trust their defense the rest of the way because, as I mentioned earlier, these two teams, it is very tough to pull off a comeback against them.
All right, Jake, this is going to be a fun one. Blades fans, get ready for game time warm-ups and puck drop are up next.